It's a thought that just sits with you, doesn't it? The Zodiac Killer, all those letters, all those lives taken, the fear, the mystery, and then nothing. Not really. No arrest, no one brought to justice, and sometimes late at night, or when you're just thinking about true crime, a really unsettling question pops into your head. What if he's still out there? What if the Zodiac Killer, the one who terrorized California all those years ago, is just? But he was a person, a living, breathing person who did those terrible things. And people, most people, they don't just vanish into thin air, they grow old. They change, or maybe they don't change at all. Think about it. The crimes happened in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Most experts guess the Zodiac was in his mid-20s, maybe early 30s, when he was doing his worst. Some say he could have been older, closer to 40. Let's just pick a middle ground, say he was 30 in 1969. That makes him 85 years old now. An old man. Or, if he was 25, he'd be 80. If he was 40, he'd be 95. So, we're talking about a guy who would be in his 80s or 90s today. He would be old. He would be very, very old. And that's where the unsettling part really starts to sink in. Because old people are everywhere. They're our neighbors, they're in the grocery store line, they sit on park benches, they're in nursing homes, they're grandparents, and one of those old people somewhere out there could be the Zodiac. The police never caught him. They tried hard. For years, they chased leads. They looked at suspects, they analyzed his weird ciphers and his taunting letters. But he was always a step ahead. He loved playing games, he loved the attention, he loved being the smartest one in the room, getting away with it all. And then, the letters stopped. The murders stopped. And the world moved on, but the case stayed cold. So, why did he stop? That's another huge part of the mystery. Serial killers usually stop for one of three reasons. 1, they get caught. 2, they die. 3, they get too sick or too old to continue. Or sometimes they just stop. They lose the urge. They find something else to fill that dark hole inside them. Maybe they simply felt they had proven their point, that they had won the game. If he's still alive, it means he wasn't caught. And it means he didn't die of natural causes back in the 70s or 80s. So it means he stopped for some other reason. Maybe his body started to fail him even back then. Maybe he had a health scare that made him rethink things. Or maybe he just satisfied his dark craving. He showed the world he could do it. He got his name out there. He stumped the police. He got his moment in the sun, a truly awful moment. And then he decided that was enough. The idea of a killer just stopping is almost more chilling than if he'd been caught. Because it means he walked away from it. He chose to re-enter normal life, or whatever normal life he had before, and carry that secret with him. Every single day for 50 years, he would have lived a whole other life, a full adult life, after being the Zodiac. What would that look like? Imagine that. An old man, maybe a quiet one, maybe he lives alone. Or maybe he's married, maybe he has kids, grandkids even. He could be that kindly old man who always has a smile for the children in the neighborhood. Or the grumpy old guy who complains about everything. He could be anyone. And he would have this enormous, terrible secret buried deep inside him. How do you carry that? For decades, how do you look your family in the eye, if you have one, knowing what you did? Do you ever think about it? Do you ever read news stories about the cold case or watch documentaries about yourself and just smile to yourself? A little private laugh about how everyone is still so stumped. It's easy to think of these killers as monsters without feelings. But they are human in some twisted way. And humans age. They experience things. They have routines. The Zodiac would have done all of that. He would have paid taxes. He would have gone to doctor appointments. He might have voted. He would have watched the world change around him from the 60s to today. From rotary phones to smartphones. From black and white TV to streaming services. He would have seen his own legend grow. Seen people speculate about him. Seen his ciphers still being debated. And he would have done it all in silence, in plain sight. Maybe he never even thought about it again. Maybe he buried it so deep he convinced himself it wasn't him, but that feels unlikely for someone so theatrical, so attention-seeking. The letters weren't just about the murders, they were about the game, about getting credit. A killer like that, a killer who writes letters, doesn't usually just forget. They like to remember. They like to relive it. Maybe not the bloody details, but the feeling of power, of being untouchable. And if he's still alive, he might not be physically able to commit crimes anymore. His hands might shake, his eyesight might be bad, he might use a cane or a walker. He might be frail. But his mind could still be sharp, and his secrets, his memories, would be sharper still. He could be reliving those moments, those killings, those letter-writing sessions, over and over again in his head. A silent trophy room in his own mind. Think about the physical evidence. There's some DNA from the letters, not a lot, but some. And over the years, DNA technology has just exploded. What was impossible to test then is routine now. What if his DNA is sitting in a database somewhere? Maybe he got pulled over for a minor traffic violation and had to give a DNA sample for some reason. Maybe he committed some small, non-violent crime years later and his DNA was collected. It happens. People get old, but they can still do dumb things. Or maybe, just maybe, his DNA is connected to a relative's DNA in a public genealogy database. Family trees are getting so big and so detailed now. It's like a giant web, and sometimes those connections can lead to unexpected places. Law enforcement never truly closes a case like this. The Zodiac case is always there, in the background. Detectives pass the files down from one generation to the next. They always hold out hope. Hope for a deathbed confession. Hope for a new witness. Hope for a technological breakthrough. And if he's still alive, that hope, however faint, still has a tiny ember. It's not just a cold case, it's a living cold. The victims' families, they've lived with this for 50 years too. The pain never goes away, but the lack of answers, the lack of justice, that's a special kind of torment. To know that the person who took their loved one, who caused so much terror, just walked away. And to think that he might still be walking among us, living his life, maybe even enjoying his golden years while they still mourn. That is truly gut-wrenching. It's an insult to their loss. There have been suspects over the years. Many of them. People have pointed fingers, people have written books, everyone has a theory. And maybe one of those theories was even close, but nothing ever stuck. And if the Zodiac is still alive, he would have watched all of this unfold. He would have seen people try to figure him out. He would have seen their failures. It must give him some perverse satisfaction. He would have seen the attention, the films, the books, all the ongoing chatter about his crimes. And he would have known that he was the only one who truly knew the answer. It makes you wonder about the last letters he sent. Were they truly the last? Or did he send others that were never connected to him? Or did he just decide, one day, to stop sending them and to stop killing? The need for control, the need for power, the need to feel superior. Those are strong drives. Do they just vanish with age? Or do they just change form? A lot of serial killers, when they age, they don't necessarily stop being violent. They might not be able to physically overpower someone, but the impulse, the pathology, it doesn't just disappear. It might get redirected. Maybe he became a cruel person in other ways, a tormentor in his daily life, but without the physical violence. Or maybe he genuinely found a way to suppress it, to live a quiet life, his monster carefully locked away in a closet in his mind. But that still means the monster's there, it's still part of him. And what about the idea of a deathbed confession? This is something people often talk about with cold cases. Someone, at the very end, wants to clear their conscience. Or maybe they just want one last moment of notoriety, one last gasp of power. If the Zodiac is alive, and if he's reaching the end of his life, would he do that? Would he finally reveal himself? Finally give the world the answers it's been craving for 50 years? Or would he take his secret to the grave, truly winning the game forever? The latter feels more like his style, doesn't it? To deny closure, even in death. To leave everyone guessing forever. But people talk. Or old people talk. Sometimes they ramble, sometimes they say things they shouldn't. What if he's in a nursing home, and he starts telling stories? War stories, maybe. Or stories about California back in the day, and what if a small detail, a tiny, seemingly insignificant piece of information, slips out? Something only the Zodiac would know. And what if someone, a nurse, a family member, another resident, hears it and connects the dots? It's a long shot, a huge long shot, but it's not impossible. The Zodiac created a mythology around himself. He created a persona, that name, still sends shivers down people's spines. And if he's alive, he's the last living piece of that mythology. He's the real ghost in the machine, walking among us, perhaps completely unnoticed. The idea of him watching the documentaries, seeing his ciphers analyzed on YouTube, hearing podcasts dissect his letters, it's really something. He'd be seeing his own legend unfold. And maybe, just maybe, he'd feel a sense of pride. A macabre pride, but pride nonetheless. He did it. He got away with it. And he's still getting away with it, right now as we speak. And this isn't just about the Zodiac. It's about what it means for our understanding of evil. That evil isn't always caught, that it doesn't always disappear, that it can grow old. It can settle down, it can become mundane, it can live a long life, blend in, and just be there. That's a very uncomfortable truth to sit with. It chips away at our sense of order. We want to believe that bad things are punished. We want to believe that justice eventually is served. But the Zodiac case, if he's still alive, tells us that sometimes it isn't. Sometimes the bad guy wins, and they don't just win and disappear, they win, and they just keep living. Think about the internet. When the Zodiac was active, there was no internet. No social media, no endless forums for true crime obsessives. Now, there is. The sheer volume of information, of theories, of discussions is staggering. If he were to send a letter today, it would explode online in seconds. The whole world would be on alert. But back then, it was a slower burn. And maybe that slow burn, that gradual buildup of his legend, was part of what he enjoyed. We've seen what happens when cold cases get new attention. Sometimes it's DNA. Sometimes it's a re-examination of old files. Sometimes it's a civilian cold case detective. The Golden State Killer, for example. He was active for years, then went quiet, and then he was caught. An old man, years later. That gives a lot of people hope for the Zodiac, that maybe, just maybe, it could happen again. That his time could still come, even now. But what if he's not even in California anymore? What if he left the state, left the country even? He could be anywhere. He could have moved to a quiet town in the Midwest. Or he could be in Florida. Or maybe he always stayed close to the scene of his crimes, enjoying the proximity to his handiwork. It boils down to this really raw human need for answers, for a neat ending. The Zodiac didn't give us one. He left us with a messy, terrifying open question. And that question just hangs in the air, gathering dust, but never truly going away. Because the person behind it could still be gathering dust himself, just aging day by day. And the biggest question, the one that truly gnaws at you, is not just if he's alive, but what he's like now. Does he have regrets? Probably not the way most people think of regrets. Serial killers rarely express genuine remorse. But maybe he regrets not being caught, so he could have had even more attention. Or maybe he regrets that his messages were never fully understood. He was so proud of his ciphers, so proud of his intelligence. Maybe he feels a little sad that no one ever truly cracked his code, not his biggest code. Or maybe he just regrets that the game ended, that the thrill, the power, the control all faded away. And now he's just an old man living out his days with only his memories for company. But those memories are awful, aren't they? And the idea that he's living with those awful memories and getting away with it for 50 years, that's just a hard pill to swallow. It forces you to look at the people around you differently sometimes. Not with paranoia, but with a new awareness. The world holds all kinds of secrets, and some secrets are older, darker, and more persistent than we can ever imagine. The Zodiac Killer, still alive, still out there, is one of those secrets, and it's a truly unsettling possibility that will likely linger for as long as there are people left to ask the question. He could be anyone, he could be anywhere, and that is perhaps the most chilling truth of all. The monster grew old. The monster is still just a man, and that man might still be breathing.